Is it recording?
It's recording.
All right, we got our coffee, we're lounging, and we're doing another podcast.
It's been a while.
Yes, it has been a long while. Today is the last day of August 2022.
Weird.
And we're pretty much in the swing of fall where we are now.
Mm-hmm. We're currently sitting at 10,000 feet.
And I'm out of breath sitting here.
The air is clear, but there's not much of it.
Yeah. But this is our podcast. It's Maybe We're Just Rambling. And we, generally speaking, like to talk about interesting things. And just decided one day we should record this, and maybe somebody else will find it interesting. Along the way, we've shared parts of our lives and things about us. But we always kind of start with this, and now it's a joke. But how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. We are in the state of Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Last y'all heard from us, we are in Idaho. And we've had a lot of changes that have happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
It's been a whirlwind.
Yeah. And so we think y'all are kind of owed an explanation for why it's been a little while for the last podcast and what's happened since then. So
I think maybe rapid fire. We'll just try to run through everything that's happened without getting bogged down in all of the nitty-gritty details. So we got to Idaho at the end of April, and I think the last episode that we recorded was the interview that we did with our friend Earth to Chrissy, which honestly I think is probably my favorite episode that we've done to date. So if you haven't listened to it, please go back and give it a listen. But that was in June or July. July. And so while we were in Idaho, we were working at an RV park as camp hosts. And when we had free time, we were hiking, and we did a lot of exploring in the Salmon River mountain area. We hiked the Seven Devils. We hiked in the Gospel Hump Wilderness, the Nez Perce National Forest, a little bit of the Payette National Forest. It was absolutely incredible, and I really fell in love with that area, even if I didn't necessarily love the people. And I guess that brings us to the latest development, which is just that we ended up leaving our position as camp hosts early.
Mm-hmm. We had some things that we really didn't like that never were really fully addressed by the owners, and we tried to go to them and try to get some things worked out, some details ironed out, and our efforts were never reciprocated and felt increasingly uncomfortable, so we left.
Mm-hmm.
On to the next chapter.
Yeah, exactly. And all I'll really say about it is that we definitely learned some things that we'll be taking with us into our next work camping position, but it did not in any way ruin work camping for us. And I think that's because we've had really positive experiences work camping, like when we were at Mission Tejas State Park down in Texas, which is where we're planning on returning. I mean, they love us there, we love them. It's a really positive work relationship, and we're excited to go back there and spend the winter down there. And we know that really positive experiences like that are probably more common than the negative ones. You just are always going to have a couple of bad apples, and all you can really do is take it as a learning experience and move forward. And that's exactly what we're planning on doing.
Yeah. So we left that RV park in Idaho. Then we moved ourselves, 50, 100 miles away, and waited on some mail to come in. We had to get some truck parts.
Some solar
stuff. Yeah. Oh, an interesting tidbit along those lines is that Apollo is a relentless hunting dog when it comes to rodents.
Oh my gosh. Who needs a cat when you have a blue heeler? Yep. He has really, really impressed me, because growing up we always had cats, and the reason we got a cat initially was because we lived in an old house that had a mouse problem, and that cat cleared those mice out in less than a week. And so everybody knows cats and mice, it's kind of a tale as old as time. But dogs, and especially, I guess, certain breeds, and I didn't know heelers really. I knew they had a high drive, but
so we were in, I think, what do you call it, the Idaho Endowment Lands, state lands.
Yeah, it's just public, state public land in Idaho.
And we were there, and we had a couple small kind of field mice come
really
in.
cute.
Yeah. So we had one come in, and it stupidly came in right around where Apollo sleeps. And so he eventually tracked it down and killed it. It tried to scurry and like go through a drain in the shower and came back up soaking wet, and he was there to meet it with the teeth. And then another one, I guess it was probably from the same place. We'd just gone to a grocery store, and he found it again.
Mm-hmm. I managed to save that one.
Rebecca saved that one and transplanted it somewhere else.
But did you know if you capture a mouse, like live, if you catch it in like a humane trap or whatever, you're supposed to release it up to, it's like 2 miles away or something like that.
They have a big range.
Yeah, surprisingly large for how small they are.
So we had all of that mail come in. We had Apollo take care of a couple of rodents. Right now he's taking care of a ground squirrel as we're in Colorado. But our next chapter was to go and see your family in Indiana.
Yeah, the kind of cool thing about how everything played out was that if we had stayed at that job in Idaho, we would have gotten done around the beginning of November, which is really dead of winter when you're this far north, and we would have needed to pretty much just head straight south.
With snow chains.
Yeah, with snow chains, because crossing the Rockies and going across the West and Midwest to see my family just really wasn't a realistic option. Plus, it would be so cold by that point. I don't want to do that. But
it would not have been the smartest option.
Yeah, and because we left that job early, it kind of opened up a lot of really interesting possibilities, and one of the most significant was that it made it possible for us to be able to go and see my family, which is awesome because I haven't seen them in around a year since my brother got married last fall. So I'm really, really excited about that. But the other thing that it opened up for us was the ability to make a pretty significant life change. And this is something that between the two of us we've been talking about for a really, really long time, and neither one of us were really pursuing anything like hard and heavy. We were kind of just waiting to see how things fell into place, and if something came across our path. You've heard us say before that we put ourselves in the way of good things happening, and so we were just kind of passively interested.
You're gonna have to say what it is, because right now there's a big question mark.
There is a big question mark. So, as you all know, we live at the moment in a 30-foot travel trailer. It's a bumper pull. And when we bought this travel trailer, we were intending to live in an RV park, pretty much never move, and go to school. And that was our solution to saving money and not having to pay rent on an apartment. Things changed, our life kind of went a different route, and we started traveling a whole lot more. And
going to school online.
And it quickly became obvious that this RV, as wonderful of a home as it has been for us, is really not practical for the kinds of things that we like to do, which is really going out into the wilderness, being off-grid for extended periods of time, being able to get back into the backcountry. Those are the places where we like to go and spend our time.
Where there's no people.
Yes, where there are fewer people. And it's really, really tough to do that in a huge rig like the one that we have. And make no mistake about it, this RV is freaking huge. Yeah. And every time we have to move it, I'm like, oh my gosh, why did we do this?
I know if we're in a parking space, clearly we have to park horizontally. And it takes, if it's somewhere that I have to pull in and pull out of, it needs to be at least 8 spaces long. We're at a little over 60 feet, just a hair over 60 feet.
And we've realized that it isn't really practical for us, and because it is a rather cheaply constructed RV, which is just a fact of most RVs, and I say most with an asterisk, they depreciate in value very quickly, and we were beginning to feel a little bit of pressure because it feels like it's time for us to make a change. And so we were looking for something different, and we explored a ton of options.
We explored options such as buying a flatbed gooseneck and building a tiny house on it. The one reason why we probably decided against that is that it's pretty hard to build a house that's able to be moved and moved comfortably, and also have it be aerodynamic and make it still easy to get in and out of tight places. Another option was a horse trailer with living quarters, such as the ones that are built similar to Airstreams with the outside sheet metal and riveted. Those tend to be a little bit heavier duty because they're made for 1,500-pound animals to be stomping around in the back of. And they have living quarters, so they're already set up with bathrooms, kitchens,
and
things
we
like that.
were gonna basically turn it into like a toy hauler type situation.
Yeah, with a garage.
Exactly. And then the other thing that we considered was, what was the other thing that we considered?
We had tiny house. We had horse trailer, living quarters. It was just like a cargo trailer gooseneck. And so those are pretty much empty on the inside, and you finish them yourself on the inside with electrical, plumbing, insulation. But all of those options, like you were saying earlier, really limit us to getting out somewhere into the wilderness that we really, really like.
And so that kind of led us to contemplating the possibility of getting something smaller. And at first I was very against it because in the current RV that we have, I have my washing machine, and honestly, I mean, I say that as if I'm leading up to this list. It's really the washing machine that I didn't want to lose. And you were actually the first one to suggest something like a slide-in camper, the kind that sits in the bed of a truck.
It goes over the cab, yeah.
And at first, I was like, what? No, that is a terrible idea. It's so small, it's so cramped. I'm saying this all with authority, having never actually set foot in one, but like, on the face of it, I was so against it, but you kept bringing it up and bringing it up. And then we went and actually looked at a couple at an RV dealership just to get an idea of what they were like.
Nothing like the one we thought we might want, but just
to get an idea. And I liked it a lot. Like, I really did.
Why'd you like it? Why would you like that?
I loved the fact that it was kind of small. I mean, we've talked before about how we feel like we have way more space than we need.
Oh, yeah,
in 200 square feet, we have way more than we need.
I could cut the back 8 feet off of this thing and we'd be fine.
I liked the fact that everything, I don't know, everything in those smaller units are just so thoughtfully laid out. There's so much storage. The construction for like the cabinets and where the bed goes and where the bathroom is, like, it all just makes sense, and it seems like it's designed to function a whole lot more efficiently than some of these bigger RVs that you get in. I mean, you and I have been in some huge rigs before. We're talking like 40 plus feet, and it's like, wow, it really doesn't feel like there's that much space in here. But you go into these tiny little, I mean, you're talking about something with what, like a 9-foot floor plan, and it's like, wow, this actually feels like pretty comfortable. And then you suggested the fact that we have the cargo trailer and we could use that as our garage, and it all just started to kind of click into place, and then I was like super on board with it.
Yeah, so a slide-in truck camper and modding out our cargo trailer were kind of a tentative plan. Didn't know what we exactly wanted, but we always kept our minds open, and me being me, I exhausted all the possibilities, and I found that the brands Bigfoot and Northern Light essentially make a molded fiberglass clamshell, like a bottom half and a top half design of a truck camper, and there are no seams other than that one that is really overlapped. There's no potential for delamination of Luan and pressed walls. There's no stick and tin, and they are made in Canada, very well insulated, and you're never, I mean,
you really don't have to worry about much.
Yeah, you keep the windows and, you know, all the points, the vent points on the roof and things like that. It's very simple. If water gets in, just dry it out.
And that kind of leads me to another point. When we were looking for our next potential home, there were a few criteria that we had. One of the biggest, especially for me, and I think for you too,
it's been for me, yeah.
Is that the next thing that we ended up in, I did not want it to have any slides. Slides are really, really popular because they extend your floor plan and can make the space feel can make the space feel a lot roomier, but we have had so many issues with this one slide that we have from like day one. I mean, the water damage that we found was because of issues with the slide. We had to pay a substantial amount of money a couple of summers ago before we hit the road the first time because it wasn't tracking correctly and wasn't wanting to go in and out, and that's a really common problem. I mean, they are a massive weak point for RVs, and I am so sick of dealing with it, and I knew that that was not something that I wanted. So that was a big thing. And then the other thing was we really wanted something that wasn't going to be as susceptible to the elements, to water and just weather in general.
Insulation.
And so that's a big reason why we were looking at things like horse trailers or cargo trailers, or potentially building something ourselves, because then we could be sure that it was constructed correctly. But then again, with all of those options, like we already said, there are mobility concerns to take into consideration. And then that was another huge reason why slide-ins, or like the cab-over campers, were so attractive to us, especially once we found out about Northern Light and Bigfoot, because these things are constructed, like the quality control on these things is like above none, or below none, or it's beyond.
It's above par.
Yeah, exactly.
So that leads us into where we are now. We're in Colorado because we checked out a slide-in camper in southern Idaho, and then we checked out one here. And we made a purchase.
We did.
We made a purchase on a Bigfoot. We wanted it to be long enough to be comfortable, but not too long that it hung off, gave us ground clearance issues or overweight issues. If it's a 1 ton, we want it to be something that's easy to move with. So we ended up with a 9-foot 6-inch floor plan in the 8-foot bed of Hank the Tank.
Yeah, it's a 1997 Bigfoot, and the people that we bought it from are really, they're such cool people. We had a really positive experience from the beginning, because when we first found the listing, we were still in Idaho.
We were still 15 hours away, probably.
And so we communicated very honestly. I mean, based off of all the pictures and everything, we're very interested in the RV. Like, we really want to come and look at it.
I can't promise you anything, but
exactly.
We're very serious.
The current, or well, I can't say current, the former owner, Ian, was like very chill about it all. There were even a couple of people that were interested in it and like going to come and look at it before we were, and he held off on letting anyone come and look at it so that we could have first dibs, which we really appreciated. That's not common.
That's a gracious thing.
Yeah, it's just very, very gracious. And this thing has been just meticulously cared for. I mean, it's a time capsule from 1997.
Yeah.
It's got the original, like, kind of blue window covers, and the upholstery on the dinette is, like, very 1997. But it is in such good shape.
Yeah.
And we feel really, really confident about it. And within a very short period of time of meeting them and seeing it, it was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. And especially because they had it priced so competitively. I mean, Bigfoot RVs, even older ones, still go for $20,000-$30,000 because they last forever. And we got a heck of a deal on this one, and it was just, how could we pass it up?
Yeah. Both parties ended up being very happy because it went to someone that they thought would care for it and use it effectively because it has sentimental value in their family.
Yeah, this has a lot of really awesome possibilities for us because for a really long time, I would say easily the last almost year now, we've been talking about making a change and doing something different, and how this RV has never really felt like the thing that we were supposed to be in, given like what we want to do and how we want to live our lives. This opens up so many possibilities, and it's really comforting to know that we bought something that isn't going to be a liability, because I think even from like day one of us purchasing this current rig, it always kind of felt like a little bit of a liability because it is so big and it is a travel trailer and all of the reasons that we've already laid out. So this feels very, very right. And everything has just kind of fallen into place without us really having to force anything. And I think that's how we know it's right.
Yeah. So as we sit here in Colorado, we have a shipment that we're waiting on that is for the tie-down equipment for it. And from there, we're going to try and see if it'll make it on the turning radius by putting it on the truck and then attaching the camper and seeing what kind of turning radius we have. It sticks off about 11.5 inches from the back, and we don't really know what it'll be like. It's either we run down to Texas with one thing and then come back and get the other, or in a perfect world, we're able to take both of them down and leave one back, and then still go visit your family.
Yeah, the bottom line is we're still going to be visiting my family in October, which is it's a desire and a necessity because I'm also getting some work done to Hank the Tank in Ohio. So
more bulletproofing.
Yes, exactly. More quality of life stuff. So at some point we're going to be making our way to Indiana, but the really cool thing is that there really isn't any pressure to like hurry up and get out of Colorado because Ian and Sarah, the former owners, are like really awesome and super flexible, and they've even told us like if we need to like leave our RV on their property and take the Bigfoot down to Texas and then come back and pick up our RV or vice versa or whatever, like it's all good, it all works. They're just being really accommodating and easy to work with, which is awesome, and I wish more people were like that. But we're kind of waiting to see on what happens once we get the Bigfoot on Hank the Tank. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I think something that relates to this podcast is that we have a YouTube channel for this, which all of the podcast gets uploaded to. And I think it might be fun in some way to incorporate all the modifications that we will likely do into that YouTube channel of just both of us. Of both of us and not just you. You have your own YouTube. I do too, but I put like truck stuff on there, like a drag strip, like 12-second like clip. I think that could be really fun. So that's kind of where we're leading into it. The next chapter will be modding the truck camper out as we see fit with transplanting our solar and battery and all that.
Making it like fit our lifestyle, which I mean, it already
it's turnkey ready.
It already has so much that we can work with. But I am really, really excited about having a new project because even though there are things I could do to this RV, I honestly have no desire to, just because I feel like it's time. Like it's time to cut this one loose. And I think it will be an awesome rig for somebody else. I mean, we're planning on, touching up the paint and getting it ready to go and putting it on the market to sell it. So I think it still has plenty of life left in it for somebody who wants a bigger travel trailer. But for us, it just really isn't fitting into our lifestyle anymore. And I'm excited to have a new project to kind of pour my creative energy into, like a blank slate that I can do different things with. I love that kind of thing. So I'm really, really excited about that. And I think sharing some things potentially on a YouTube channel could be a lot of fun too. I don't really know what that'll look like because I have a very strong creative personality, and this is something that you and I have talked about before. Because I have been making videos and kind of in the online space for so long, my like online persona as it is very well developed, and I don't think that yours necessarily is as much.
No, not at all.
And
I have no problem admitting that.
And so I think depending on what we decide to do, I would really like to see you kind of take the reins with Maybe We're Just Rambling.
Oh boy.
Because
we talked about this. This isn't a surprise you're throwing on me.
Because I worry that if I'm the one that's in charge of the directing and the filming and the editing, it's just going to look like an extension of my current YouTube channel, and I don't really want that.
That's fair. Yeah.
And it's hard to find your own voice if you are kind of creating in the shadow of somebody else who's really, really strong. So we do have a YouTube channel for Maybe We're Just Rambling, and the only thing that's on there now is just our episodes, just like the audio of our episodes. So who knows? Maybe we'll do something like that. I think that's kind of, honestly, I think that's kind of up to you and how you want to handle it.
Yeah. If any of you have any suggestions of ways that we could go, or directions, or
things you'd like to see,
just kind of the attitude in it, I would really appreciate it, since I might be doing a little bit more of that. I'll say that I do like DIY stuff, and maybe not the everyday vlogging thing. I'm just not that personal. I have no problem with other people doing that. But the DIYing, the interesting facts, interesting things like that I've learned that maybe you might want to know. Kind of a combination of several YouTube channels I probably already follow, like All About RVs with Jared Gillis, or to another
Will Prowse and his solar stuff.
Yeah, Will Prowse and his solar, and then there's another one I found recently, the guy that built his own like overlanding slide-in. Things like that. That might be the direction it goes towards.
Because I feel like you're a very creative person, and you have everything that you need already to create like something really cool. If you want to, I just don't know how to
share things in a more personal way. Whenever I'm not actually dealing with a one-on-one person, I'm really good at explaining things out as I see them and understand them if people are asking questions. But if you give me a blank slate, you're gonna get a blank slate back.
I mean, that's kind of fair. You match the energy that you've received.
Yeah.
And with like digital content creation, you're basically making something and then just sending it out into the void.
I call it the ether.
Yeah. And whatever comes of it, comes of it, and that can be kind of difficult. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with everything. It's really exciting. I'm over the moon about it. It feels very, very right. And I am really appreciative of all of the support that we have gotten from the people that we've told. By and large, we've gotten nothing but positive feedback, because we're really blessed to have some awesome people in our lives who fully support what we're doing and are in our corner and want to see us happy and succeeding at whatever we do, regardless of how unconventional it might be. So, huge shout out to everybody. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's an interesting point you bring up about the unconventional aspect, is that we're doing this, and this is honestly a whole lot less scary than when we bought the travel trailer, because I think we know what we want, we know what we need now, and we're at kind of a crossroads, or approaching it, in that, let's see, it's the end of August. September through December will be my last 4 months of college, and I'll be graduated.
Yeah, that's huge.
And then you'll be a couple months behind me. And so with that comes onto, whatever else life brings, using my degree in some way to
earn a living, basically.
Earn a living and provide more sustenance for us. You won't be far behind me. I think you'll be done in the spring.
Yeah.
And clearly how we're gearing up for is trying to find either remote work or seasonal work.
I don't really see anything changing majorly for us. I just see things continuing to evolve within the I
just don't know how it's going
paradigm that we've created.
It's interesting. We're at a kind of a crossroads. We're approaching it. You can see on your maps that in X amount of miles you're going to be turning one way or another. You just don't know which one yet.
Yeah, and I think we've talked a little bit before about conversations that you and I have had where it's like, at what point do we embrace the fact that this is not something that we are just doing to kill time or to save a little bit of money? Like, at what point do we embrace the fact that this is who we are and this is what we are doing and this is the life that we want to lead? And
that used to sound a whole lot scarier.
Yeah, and now it's just like, well, of course. I mean, everything that we've done over the last 2+ years has made it so that we can better facilitate this lifestyle. And this is just the next step in that. And it's really, really cool. And I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know. I don't know I don't know what exactly is going to happen next, but I feel no stress about it. I don't feel this need to have like a big like 5-year plan or 10-year plan or anything like that. I'm just really, really enjoying the process and the journey of getting from one point to the next and seeing what happens along the way.
Yeah. Speaking of plans, I plan to need to stand up and stretch my legs. My knees are kind of achy. You want to take a break?
Yeah,
Come back in a
let's take
second?
a break. So this morning I had just poured myself a cup of coffee and it was sitting on the table, and I had let the dogs out so that they could do their business and everything. And I hear a sound and I look out and I see River kind of trotting away. And River's the one we have to keep an eye on because she will, if left unattended, just kind of wander off and be miles away before you even know what's happening. Apollo is like steady as the day is long. Like you don't have to worry about him at all. But I saw that, and so I open the door, and I see Apollo, like, just trotting around my truck and, like, barking at the front end. And I know his behavior well enough now when there's something that he, like, sees or is interested in or is trying to alert us to. And I also have watched enough videos and seen enough people's stories from, like, being out in the backcountry to know that critters really love getting up into your spaces. And so I went and I unlocked my truck and I popped the hood, and I didn't know what I was going to see. Like, I figured, some little mouse or whatever. I popped the hood, and there, nestled in the center of my engine bay, surrounded by some engine bay like insulation and some grasses, was this ground squirrel, this chunky ground squirrel, and it was just staring at me like, and I was like,
you weren't supposed to know I was here.
Yeah, and I was like, you can't be here. And Apollo's going nuts and River's going nuts, and it like scrambles off and down further down into my engine bay.
I think it went down into the transmission tunnel.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so that is the first time I've had rodents in my engine bay, which is wild because as much as we do this, you would think it would have happened sooner. And it's even crazier because yesterday was the only day we didn't move the truck. We've gone somewhere every single day that we've been here except for yesterday, and it moved in that quickly. Yep. And so you were like taking out the insulation that it had chewed up and the grasses, and it had even like stuffed some mushrooms down in there. Like this thing had moved in and was ready to like set up shop for the winter.
We're blessed that it did not chew up our...
That was my biggest concern,
Me too.
but it didn't look like it did. So Apollo is still out there circling my truck. It's probably still in there and it's afraid to leave because Apollo is like ready to pounce. Yeah. I don't see this ending well for that squirrel. It picked a really bad place to try to move in because we know now from past experience that Apollo will not stop until he gets what he is after.
It'll be 3 o'clock in the morning and he'll be pacing and whining and crying if there's just the smallest little field mouse somewhere in here. And we've never had those problems before until we've been out this way.
Yeah.
And he just picked it up like it was his instinct.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's been kind of entertaining and kind of funny. It was a really, really cute ground squirrel, and I wish them no ill will, but they cannot be in my vehicle or in our home. That is absolutely like not a good thing. So we're just letting Apollo hunt it down. And he'll get it eventually, I am sure, or it'll run away. But
what else did I say we might talk about after the break? Like things like funny things about our life that are going on right now.
Well, last week you and I basically took on the entire city of Denver and several suburbs. Yep. I'll let you tell that story because that was wild.
Okay, so we have solar and a charge controller and batteries and all that stuff. Well, not exactly any fault of our own. The charge controller ended up frying, and it's going to get covered by warranty, thankfully.
Shout out Victron.
Yeah, shout out Victron. But
not Battleborn.
But not Battleborn. We bought this, a larger charge controller several months ago for...
upgrading our batteries.
Yeah, for upgrading our batteries and things like that. And it is... Well, we got it secondhand. And so the warranty was kind of questionable, and I found through the serial number that it was Battleborn that was the original seller, or vendor to the original buyer. And they refused me warranty work, and I contacted the sales manager of North America for Victron, and he's like, they should have covered it. give me your address. So gave him a mail forwarding address. That's getting taken care of. But we had to get a new charge controller in the meantime because the heartbeat of this RV is the fact that we can have electricity without a generator or without being plugged into shore power at an RV park or somebody's outlets at their house. And so we needed one ASAP. We're almost close to 2 hours from the city of Denver, west of the city of Denver. And we ordered one, got it sent to an Amazon locker there.
Which we've done before.
We've done that plenty of times before. And at no fault to our own, again, all the lockers were full, and they said that they would try again. We made half a dozen or more phone calls through customer support and the hub warehouse in and around Denver.
Well, let me just pause you really quick because I want to make sure that anyone listening fully understands the severity of the situation. So on a typical 7-day week, our charge controller basically ate itself on like a Tuesday. And we needed a new one as soon as possible, and the soonest that we were able to get one was like a Friday to a locker in Denver. And we go to pick it up and it's not there, and it's because all the lockers are full. We've driven 2 hours to come into the city to pick this thing up. We need it that day because we have maybe like 18 hours left in our batteries, and that's with us like scraping by, not using very much.
We're killing the inverter at night. We're just going off of USB outlets.
We're worrying about the food in our deep freeze potentially spoiling if we can't keep things frozen. Like, it's a whole thing, and Amazon would not deliver it to a different locker. And they were like, well, just go sit where the locker is. They're supposed to try to re-deliver it today.
So several hours later, we've talked to people at customer support wherever they were in the Amazon hub warehouse. They actually gave us the location for the driver, and so I just put it in drive, and we take off drive. We're gonna like track this guy down based on what the Amazon customer support is telling us. Probably not the best idea, and probably not in their rules. So,
but we were desperate.
We were desperate. I told them it was an emergency. We're 2 hours away usually, and we need it now. So, end of story. We were not able to track down the person that had it, and we went to they sent us to the hub
for Denver.
Yeah, for the whole city of Denver. And so we're speeding there. Every light's turning red as I cross the line. We have the crossbars going down the railroad tracks as we're going under them, and it was not a fun time, but we were able to talk our way through with a live person at the Amazon hub that they said we needed an address, any address in Denver, because they can't try and re-deliver to the same address.
For whatever reason.
For whatever reason.
And they wouldn't like give us the option to just meet them somewhere and give us their mail. And they also wouldn't bring it back to the hub and just give it to us there. It was like, no, we have to deliver it to some address. Do you know anyone in Denver? And I'm like, I don't know anyone in Denver.
So, evidently I have a sister-in-law that I'm disconnected with that lives at 1540 such and such lane in such and such suburb of Denver. And we, I mean, thankfully it was an abandoned house. It wasn't like up in shambles. It was in a nice neighborhood. But
nobody was living there.
Nobody was living there. We're on the curb watching this Amazon driver come up to it an hour later and leave it on the porch. We thankfully didn't get the law called on us for being porch pirates. But we got our mail, and we took on the whole city and suburbs of Denver, and we won.
It was an all-day affair, and I don't think we reached a conclusion until like 7:45 in the evening. And I was fully expecting for things to not work out. I was thinking that we were going to have to go back, get the RV, take it to an RV park, because we were without power, essentially, that we were going to have to like order another $550 charge controller and get it sent somewhere else. Like, I thought it was going to be this whole thing, and somehow we managed to pull it together and get things worked out. And
most people would have quit.
It was just a really crazy day. So many like ups and downs and highs and lows, and Yeah, but it all worked out, and now we know, and I wish I would have known this sooner, you can get things sent and you can go and pick them up from Amazon hubs. You don't have to necessarily get them sent to like a physical address or to a locker. You can actually go to the warehouse, and they have drop boxes and everything there, and you can pick it up. And if I would have known that, then we probably could have done that, and then we would have been able to get it no problem.
That
like
morning.
even if the locker had all been full, we could have just told them like, hey, this is our thing and it says it's here, and they would have been able to get it for us. So it's, you live and you learn. But that was a crazy situation, and all I can say is that I'm really thankful that we invested in lithium batteries, because if we had still had our old lead acid set up, we would have fried our batteries and like really been up a creek.
And it would have lasted about 2.5 days. And that was completely frying them. With our lithium bank that we have, it's set up in a 24 volt configuration. There's 8 cells basically that when you put them in series, they end up being over 24 volts. And so we have those, and it's about 7.5 kilowatt hours worth of electricity in them, or the potential for energy in them. And we went from quite literally 100% to 0%. I installed that charge controller at night, and in the next morning it kicked back off and started charging. We had run out the night that we got it back. Nothing ended up spoiling, and by the hair on our little chinny chins, we made it out just fine.
It had kind of been a crazy week too, and I mention all of this stuff just because it's just an example of Murphy's Law, and we got hit with it really hard, because it was like on Monday we had a blowout in the middle of like nowhere, Wyoming. Luckily nothing on the RV was damaged, it just shredded the tire, but we were able to put the spare on and get to like a Les Schwab or something like that and get a new tire. The next
at 5:45 when they closed at 6.
Right, so we like barely squeaked in then. The next day, on our way up a massive grade in Colorado, the rear pinion seal on my, like, the rear differential on my truck blew out, and we were just flinging fluid everywhere. And
smoking on the exhaust. Yeah, it was.
And we managed to find a mechanic in that town that we had just left that was able to get us in and out that day. So again, we like barely squeaked through being stuck in a town for like a really long time. But then that exact same day, our charge controller ate itself. So it was like for about the span of a week there, it was like one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. And it was like, what can possibly go wrong next? And it's just, you know, it's a perfect example of Murphy's Law. But we got through it, and everything ended up working out. So
all the while, we found a slide-in camper and bought it.
Yeah. So we really have gone all over the map and had quite a journey to get to the point where we are, but here we are.
So, with all that being said, as Rebecca and I have both mentioned, this is the stage in the chapter that we're in our life. We are still going to be doing this podcast, and I think we're going to start going back to our roots, actually. Interestingly enough, we had a good conversation about this a day or two ago, in that I think this podcast should probably, so that it can be consistent, it should get back to topical things, such as our opinion on random things. Like, that's how we started. That's before we even had a podcast. It was maybe we're just rambling about things that we find interesting. And I think that's the best way going forward to make it consistent, because if it's just kind of like an audio log of our lives, it's going to be very scattered.
Yeah, we did have a very good conversation. And I also think that I probably will be taking a big step back, because though nobody listening to this probably knows that, all of the production and everything that goes into our content is all done by me. And that is fine for the most part. Like, I don't mind it. I really enjoy it, to be honest. But I am only one half of the whole of Maybe We're Just Rambling. And as we've already discussed in this episode once, my creative personality is very strong. And I don't want to drown you out. and take away from your creative process.
Yeah.
So things might be shifting a little bit, but I don't know how obvious that will be from the outside, since it's all going to kind of be behind the scenes stuff.
The way I imagined it in my brain is that right now you have been if you're speaking about a vehicle, you've been the accelerator and you've been the steering wheel, and I've been the brakes. And so I think we need a better combination of that, in that I be the steering wheel, maybe you try and help me focus in and push towards things, and then we can both try and pump the brakes as needed. So I personally hope that this stays consistent, because as much as it's been all you and creativity, it's not always been exactly what I wanted, but I've still liked it along the way. So we always end with some type of feel-good story or something good that we heard about in our lives, or just any number of things to just try and lighten the mood, because sometimes we talk about deep things, sometimes we talk about things that people don't like to talk about. And Rebecca has a pretty cool article pulled up, and I have no clue about it other than the title, so we'll see what we see.
So I actually heard this story for the first time on a different podcast called, what is it? I think it's called like the Bananas Podcast, and it's just like a funny news podcast. So if you want something really lighthearted and easy to listen to and entertaining and funny, I highly recommend it. It's just a really, really good podcast. But this particular story was brought to my attention by that podcast, and I did a little bit more research into it, and it's really entertaining, and I think you guys will like it. The title is Sgt. Reckless, and this is from a website called lovetheenergy.com, and it says, proving the bravest hearts can come in small packages, Reckless was a 14-hand pony who served in many battles during the Korean War. It says, during the Korean War, one of the U.S. Marine Corps' most deadly weapons was the 6-foot-long recoilless rifle. Weighing over 100 pounds, several men had to carry it into battle, where it could fire a 75mm shell thousands of yards with incredible precision. However, deploying this weapon, which the soldiers nicknamed Reckless, was dangerous. Eric Peterson, the commander of the platoon in charge of the weapon, wanted to find a better way. The solution came to him in the form of a small chestnut mare named Ah Chim Hai, or Morning Flame. He paid $250 of his own money for the pony. Then he and his men trained her to carry the rifle, plus 9 heavy 24-pound shells. The mare also learned to lie down under fire, avoid barbed wire, crouch in foxholes, and to run for cover when there was incoming fire. The Marines nicknamed her Sgt. Reckless, and after 2 years, the commander of the 1st Marine Division was so impressed by the mare that he gave her an official battlefield promotion to the rank of sergeant. Her fellow soldiers took the rank seriously. No one was allowed to ride her, not only because of her rank, but also because she was too valuable. Eventually, her role and responsibilities grew beyond hauling the heavy rifle. She carried supplies and ammunition to dangerous outposts and carried wounded soldiers from the battlefield. In 1953, Reckless was at the Battle for Outpost Vegas, where thousands of soldiers were killed in 3 days of fighting. In one single day of the battle, Sgt. Reckless made over 50 trips across rice paddies and up steep mountain trails to the front lines and back. At first, she would make the trek with a Marine leading her, but after casualties grew so great that no one could be spared to guide her, Reckless made the trips on her own, save for the occasional wounded soldier across her back. She was wounded twice, hit both above her eye and in her left flank. Despite her wounds, Reckless continued to make the trip back and forth while under fire and without a human being to help her. Sergeant Harold Waldley was one of the soldiers present that day, and couldn't believe the sight of this riderless mare braving the dangers of battle. I looked back at the eastern skyline through all the smoke and swinging flare light and could hardly believe my eyes, the Battle of Outpost Vegas veteran recalled at the unveiling of the statue of Reckless at Camp Pendleton in 2016.
Wow.
Surely an angel must have been riding her. The bond between Reckless and her fellow soldiers ran deep. They would give her the coats off their backs to help keep her warm. She would make them laugh even during the toughest times. She shared their sea rations and mess hall chow and even slept in their tents on cold nights. At the end of the war, Sergeant Reckless lived at Camp Pendleton and was treated as a hero. She was awarded 2 Purple Hearts, a Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal, a Presidential Unit Citation with Bronze Star and National Defense Service Medal, a Korean Service Medal, the United Nations Korean Medal, a Navy Unit Commendation, and a Republic of Korea Presidential Unit Citation.
What?
She would wear these awards on her horse blanket. Reckless also became a mother in retirement, producing 4 foals, Fearless in 1957, Dauntless in 1959, and Chesty in 1964, and an unnamed filly that died a month after birth. Sergeant Reckless died at Camp Pendleton in 1968 after falling into a barbed wire fence. She passed away while being treated for her wounds under sedation. Although no one knows how old she was, it's estimated that she was 19 or 20 years old when she died. Today there are statues in her honor at the Museum of Marine Corps in Quantico, Virginia, and at Camp Pendleton. In 1997, Life magazine named Reckless as one of America's 100 all-time heroes.
What?
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen like the War Horse movie and stuff like that.
Of course.
But this is clearly a different.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, that's cool.
Yeah, I just love the idea of a highly decorated horse. I mean,
He's got more ribbons than I did.
Having been in the Navy, it's not uncommon for service animals to get like awards and that kind of thing. Like, it's not completely unheard of.
It's mostly canines.
Yeah, but it's mostly canines. And just the idea of a horse and the fact that she basically held everything together with no one leading her is really, really incredible. And I got chills reading that story. I just thought that was really, really entertaining and incredible, and I don't know, a testament to how intelligent animals can be. Mm-hmm. So I hope you enjoyed hearing that as much as I enjoyed telling it.
Yeah, I'm just imagining, because sometimes we'll have the dogs up in bed with us. I'm just imagining a horse being in your tent. You just got
she was a pony.
Yeah, you got this big old belly sitting there. I mean, I guess it's a pretty warm and comfy pillow, but geez.
I want to see that turned into a movie because I feel like that would be such a good story. Mm-hmm. I love stories like that, like War Horse, and there's a couple of others about like animals operating under like incredible
just horse
conditions.
Movies in general look good
yeah,
too.
just horse movies in general. So anyway, that is the story of Sergeant Reckless, and I actually saw there is a book about like her life and stuff. I saw it on Amazon. I don't remember the title.
Not an autobiography.
No, no, probably not. But I kind of want to read it now. And I think if you just look up like Sergeant Reckless on Amazon or whatever at your local library, you could probably find the title. I feel like that's something my mom would really enjoy too. So anyway, that is our feel-good story.
Is there a dog out
Dogs, yeah. Apollo ran them off. 2 dogs running along the SUV. Okay, let's just backtrack a little bit.
No, that's okay. That's our rambling podcast. I covered a little bit of everything. How our life has been going in the last month or two.
What the future might hold.
What we did in the recent time.
And a feel-good story as well. And as always, please, if you have not already, rate and review this podcast. You can rate podcasts on Spotify now, which is pretty cool. So if you haven't done that already, we would greatly appreciate it. Leave a review wherever you listen. Share it with somebody. And we always appreciate your support.
Yeah. I appreciate recommendations going forward if I'm going to be doing this. So please let me know. I'm Stuart.
I'm Rebecca.
This has been our ramble.